Hello everybody and welcome back. My name is Kari and today I am doing my most disappointing reads of 2018. I am very behind this year. I finished my Christmas shopping on the 22nd when it's normally done by October, and clearly, seeing as it's the 29th, I am very behind on booktube videos, at least the end of the year ones that I want to get up. So forgive me for that, but we're just gonna forge ahead and there may be some at the beginning of January. I don't know exactly how many disappointing reads there are of 2018. I think there's probably a little bit less than 10. I had a pretty average year, to be honest. About 10 phenomenal reads, video coming, and a couple less than 10, I think, disappointing reads. I only had one book that I absolutely hated, and if you don't know what it is, you probably haven't been with me very long, but I've mentioned it once or twice with just books that I absolutely hated, and that'll be on this list as well because otherwise it would be a one-book video of worst books and that just doesn't make any sense. Let's get started. So the first one was The Roundhouse by Louise Erdrich, and these are in no particular order as far as rating, they're just in order as far as chronologically. This book I read back in January. It was a book club pick, and it follows a young boy who's about 15 in a North Dakota Native American tribe. His mother gets raped, and the legal implications of that are, well, virtually none because they don't know if she was raped on state land, tribal land, or federal land. And in Indian law, that makes a huge difference. I found the legal ramifications, or lack thereof, and just the law in general in this book fascinating. However, it was so oriented on this 15-year-old's obsession with sex that it threw me off and made the rest of the book unenjoyable for me. Number 2 is A Shadow Bright and Burning by Jessica Cluess. I do want to finish the trilogy because it wasn't a bad book. I think I gave it 3 out of 5 stars, but it was just so disappointing. I expected a lot more from it based on the cover and the synopsis, and I just didn't get what I was looking for, so that made me sad. Hopefully the other 2 are better, but I'm guessing that they will also be around 3 stars. Number 3 is Milk and Honey by Rupi Kaur. I don't know what the fuss is about this book. It is a poetry collection. I don't particularly remember what it's about. I know that I read it in February when I was over in the UK for my friend's wedding. But that's about all I remember. Beyond that, I liked the illustrations and I think I gave it a 2 out of 5. Next is the entire His Dark Materials trilogy by Philip Pullman. The first one is either The Golden Compass or The Northern Lights, depending on which part of the world you're in, and by which part of the world I mean whether you're in the United States or the rest of the world, because we can't do anything like anybody else, but that's a whole other thing. And this trilogy is a heavy-handed attempt at middle grade theology. I don't understand why people love this. I would not have loved this in middle school either. It would have been too dense. It took me serious discipline and hatred of the book to get through it because I don't DNF books, and I did not enjoy them. The one thing I did like about the entire trilogy was those antelope things that have a ball that they stick their legs into and then that's how they move. I thought that was really fun, but that's about all I got. Number 5 is The Whiskey Sea by Anne Creel. This was supposed to be a whiskey bootlegger in the 1920s. The main character was a woman, and it turned out basically that was the background and it was about her romance, which is not what I wanted or cared about, and the romance wasn't even good anyway. So I wanted so much more from that book. It sounded fascinating, and the parts that I enjoyed were the rum-running parts. They put, not napalm, but some very flammable, extra powerful sort of gas into the boat's gas tank when it was overheated, and that just ended badly. And I liked about 3 parts of it, so I think I gave it a 2.5 out of 5. Number 6 is my least favorite book I have read in probably the last 2 or 3 years, and that is We Are Never Meeting in Real Life by Samantha Irby. It is the yellow one with a cat on it, picture on the screen somewhere. This book is a nonfiction. It is about her life, and usually I like nonfictions. I give them probably close to a 4 or 5 stars almost every time, unless they're just really dry. This book, however, got a 1 star for me because it was self-deprecating to the point of self-hatred and crude to the point of cringing, both of which I can deal with regularly. I tend to be very self-deprecating myself, and swearing is not something that bothers me, but this book just took everything to a level that I cringed the entire time I read it. And when I finished it, I don't even know where it is because I disliked it that much. Number 8 is Second Born by Amy Bartol. This is another of those where the potential was so good and then it just crashed and burned. However, I did still buy the second one because it kind of got better towards the last third of the book, so I'm hoping and praying that the second one is better. And I should find the second one because theoretically I have it in here, but the problem is that's Tomi Adeyemi, that's Lee Bardugo. There it is, yeah. Oops. So this one is the first one, Second Born, and it's about a girl who is the second born in a society where the firstborn is the one who, you know, gets all the perks, kind of like primogenitor in real life. It's a sort of fantasy science fiction, except the science fiction part is just really cheesy and not thought out. They have like pew guns, basically. It's very strange. I was so disappointed in it. The romance was obvious and started 30 pages in for no apparent reason whatsoever. And it didn't need to be in there. The romance has no place in this book whatsoever. However, it is still in there, so fine. It had such potential in that this girl is realizing that the world is not what she thinks it is and that she has to change it. And I love that kind of premise, but the execution was just not there. I think around number 9 is When Dimple Met Rishi by Sandhya Menon. This, I still gave it a 3 out of 5 because objectively I can see how people enjoy it, but my personal rating is probably closer to a 2 out of 5. This book is about a young Indian American girl, Indian heritage girl, as in the subcontinent India, who really, really desperately wants to go to this computer programming program in California, I think, in the summer. Her parents just want her to get married, and they've set her up in an arranged marriage because that's part of Indian culture, and they haven't told her that the guy she's supposed to marry is going to go to that camp too. So they both end up at the camp and meet, and he knows all about this arranged marriage. She doesn't. Hijinks ensue, and it is a YA contemporary, so you know what happens in the end. It's not knowing what happens at the end that bothers me, it's the fact that they could have had so much more about the programming and this girl in a very male-dominated profession, and they didn't. Sandhya Menon just ran with the romance, which is fine, but if you're going to run with a romance in a fluffy contemporary, you don't need 400 pages for it. It was just very disappointing, especially after all of the hype I'd heard about this book. I was very excited to read it because it was one of 3 contemporaries I own, and it just did not live up to the hype at all. And 2 honorable mentions that weren't, strictly speaking, disappointing books or bad books, but they weren't what I expected or necessarily wanted out of them. The first one is Rebel Queen by Michelle Moran. I love Michelle Moran. She's absolutely an amazing author, and I've read multiple books by her that I adore, such as Cleopatra's Daughter. But Rebel Queen was marketed as one thing when it was actually another. The back made it sound like you were going to be following this rebel queen in India in the 19th century, and you were going to follow her as she fought back against the British, because nobody likes it when the British come into their country. But as it turns out, it was about the rebel queen's country born and raised bodyguard, which again is fine. I needed it to be marketed as that, because we did see the rebel queen and how she learned to fight back. It just wasn't actually following her. And the other one is The Jaguar Princess by Claire Bell. The Jaguar Princess is sort of a stereotypical late 80s, early 90s fantasy book. It is about a young girl in the Aztec times, which was really exciting. That just thrilled me. And turns out this girl is a member of a class, I guess, of shapeshifters. She can turn into a jaguar and back. That's all I'm gonna say, because there is a fair bit of stuff that happens in this book, and it is very interesting, I think, to see how it plays out in an Aztec setting. My problem with the book was that it was just very male-centered, even though the main character was a woman, or a girl. I think she was 14. And it felt overly dense for something that should have been very action-packed and exciting. So, like I said, there are 9 books on this list, 11 if you include the honorable mentions, and if I've counted correctly. But those are my most disappointing reads, including the one worst book I read, The Yellow One with the Cat. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give it a big thumbs up down below and hit that subscribe button. I will leave my Goodreads and Twitter down below if you want to check it out. And now that I'm not traveling every other weekend, I will actually be able to, and remember to, update my Twitter when I am reading. That's all I have though, again, so I will see you in my next video. Bye.